Mark Anthony here from MedTech World Podcast. With me today is Gabriele, CEO of Alira Health. Gabriele is a regular participant in global events as a moderator, speaker, panelist, and today on our MedTech Podcast. Let's go. Gabriele, thank you for stopping by and welcome to the MedTech Podcast. How are you today?
Doing great, and I can hear that you speak well Italian because you're saying my name very well. But good job, Mark.
Thank you very much. I tried to practice in the last years. I had lost the touch, but I developed it again in Germany.
It's there. I can hear it.
Thank you. We're not very far from you anyway. We're located in Malta, so yes. we have a very strong pull towards Italy. Gabriele, Alira Healthcare. So how can you describe your personal history and how did it lead to Alira?
So how did I end up working for or building actually Alira Health? By serendipity, I started my career in healthcare because of my dad. I wanted to become a diplomat, so I studied diplomacy in political science, and then I didn't like it. So I called my dad, and he was the managing director of a pharmaceutical company in API. And I said, Dad, can you give me a chance to turn around my career just at the beginning? And he said, yes, but I'm going to send you to China. So he sent me to China to set up a joint venture there for a couple of years. And that's how I started to work in the pharmaceutical sector. Came back, did my MBA because I knew I had a lot of weaknesses in understanding business and finance. And then I started with this company called CMC, 𝐂𝐸-𝐴-𝐶, which is the predecessor of Alira Health. Alira Health became Alira Health in 2017 as a new brand. And I bought the firm in 2015 through a leverage buyout. But I've been working with the same firm for 17 years, right? Because I started with CMC, bought it in 2015. And so it's a kind of a boring CV, Mark. But
it's definitely one which packs a lot of experience, though, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Yeah, absolutely. So that's how I ended up in Alira Health and been the CEO since 2015 when I acquired the company with my partner from France, Pension Bond. Yeah.
Great. That's great. Well, then how can you describe Alira Health for us?
So Alira Health is a very particular animal within the services and technology providers for life sciences. So we are an integrated provider of solutions that is consulting plus technology throughout the whole continuum of development of a device or a pharmaceutical or a drug. So we started actually at the end of the cycle. We come from what is called upstream consulting and mergers and acquisitions. So we were selling our licensing drugs and devices. But we discovered that a lot of mistakes or wrong decisions were done through the whole path. And so we said, why don't we develop a company that can help these companies and inventors and developers through the whole life cycle? So we went into regulatory, we went to clinical trial management, data management, biometrics, real world solution, commercial excellence to follow the whole cycle. So we went from a company, when I bought the company in 2015, we were 30 people and less than $2 million in sales to 800 people and over $100 million in the last 6 years. So it's been an incredible journey. Fun to ride.
That's great. Gabriele, from my research on Alira Health, I know that you do a lot of humanizing healthcare.
Yeah.
So what does it mean in practice?
Humanization is a big word, right? People are saying, what is humanizing healthcare? Guys, you're doing services B2B. So our definition of humanizing healthcare, or what we call democratization of life sciences research, is the mission of always involving the point of view of the patient in every solution we deliver. So when you think about a clinical trial management, how can we involve more the patient and engaging the patient in facilitating the clinical trial and getting their feedback? They're not just the feedbacks they have a primary or secondary endpoint for regulatory, but also to understand the opinion of the patient on a certain drug or a certain device. So when we started to buy technology, we bought technologies to enable us to follow and walk the talk of this particular humanization strategy. So we bought technologies that will allow us to partner with patients throughout the whole life cycle in building registries, in running decentralized clinical trials, in collecting primary data in a real-world setting. So that's where we bought it. We say where we acquire technologies. So we say we work with patients for patients, right? That's the humanization that we are trying to promote and pioneer in the business of B2B, of solutions to pharma and device companies. Yeah.
Well, out of experience, I see that most of these companies or similar companies like to call themselves patient-centric. Now, what sets you apart from other institutions calling themselves patient-centric?
So let's say that a lot of pharma and device companies, they say they're patient-centric, but they still need a lot of guidance on how they're evolving or moving through the path of development. And that's what we provide to them, right? So are you really always asking yourself, what would the patient do? What would the patient say in this particular circumstance, right? From the primary packaging of the drug to the adherence on the drug. And that's what we do, right? So we help the big pharma or the biotech of the world approaching development with that mentality, which most of the times at the beginning starts to be a marketing tool, but we're trying to make them real, right? We're trying to say, when you run a clinical trial, you have to think about this and this and this. Oh, really, I have to? Yes, you have to if you want to have compliance and a better patient engagement. Okay, thank you, Gabriele. Thank you, Alira Health. Let's do it. With what technology? Here's the technology. So that's how we do it. In the service business, it's a little bit easier to differentiate ourselves because most of our competitors are really focusing on provider data or payers data in their work. So they tend to go to patients through a hospital, an outpatient center, or through a payer. For us, it's direct access to patients. So on our app, we have over 160,000 patients on different TAs, and we have direct access to them. We are the believer that patients is the most important owner of their care. And so when you have to collect data, we want to bet on them. Why have to go to 3 different hospitals to understand the longitudinal data of a patient and try to create an interoperability between the data? Why don't you ask patients to get those data from the hospital? They can now, since last year, thanks to the Cures Act, and they will provide you those data. So they are actually because they really care about their condition. Actually, the best ambassador of your care is yourself, right? So that's what we're betting on. So it's kind of easy to be differentiated from the other service providers with this type of approach.
That's great. Gabriele, I have another question for you. Well, a few others.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm just curious. Okay. How does the Cures Act regarding the sharing of electronic health and data benefits patients and inform them about the patient-centric mission?
Yeah. So the Cures Act, which was something that started in 2016, and it took 6 years to get into execution, and not full execution yet. So think about the whole process that you have to go through in politics in the US. But it's a major change. So the idea was before, if I'm a patient, let's say I'm an oncology patient, if I ask my hospital, I want to receive my EMR because I want to use that EMR and get a second opinion somewhere else, or I want to work with another hospital and see my continuum of care, it was very difficult. I mean, come and we'll give you the CD. Really? Give me the CD? Or, oh yeah, but you gotta pay $500. Oh yes, we're gonna give you some information, but not the doctor notes. It was impossible and very difficult for an oncology patient to collect all the data and be able to receive the secondary opinion or to receive different care from another hospital. And whenever you were asking hospital A, can you talk to hospital B and make sure it gets the data were hardly shared between the hospital just because of different systems. So the Cures Act is trying to fix that and saying, patient, you are the promoter of your health. And so now we give you the ability to collect your patient data, your clinical data from your providers. So if now, since the 6th of October of last year, if you go to your hospital and say, I want my EMR, they are legally obliged to give you the EMR. Now, technology is not yet there because they're going to ask you, go on the patient portal and download it. So there are people that are very tech savvy and they can do it, but there are people that are not tech savvy and they are left out. So for us as Alira Health, we have a big campaign on awareness, on education. So we're not spending money in technology that will connect hospital A to B. We're spending money on educating patients to know they can get that information and in a certain way. But you need to educate them. Yeah, you need to educate them.
I find it to be a justice for who doesn't have the capacity maybe to think about something like that, to have a healthcare system which is not only monitoring your well-being, but also give you insights into what you can do as to participate yourself as well. Like you know where to go, where to get your information from, and not to shy away from what's technically a right that you have.
And Mark, think about it. I mean, you are in Europe somehow, right? With Malta, or close to Europe, and the Mediterranean mentality of the relationship of a patient with a doctor is very hierarchical. Think about my parents. If the doctor tells them something, they will never dare to ask a doctor and ask new questions about themselves. They take it as granted. That's what the doctor told me. So that's very Mediterranean mentality to think about it.
That's very true.
In US, it's changing, right? Oh, the doctor told me that, but should I really trust that? Let me check and ask somebody else. So let me think about it. Now, I don't want people to go on ChatGPT and think that they're going to become all doctor with that. But the ability to control their data and ask opinions to different people and take care of themselves and ownership of their care, it's great. And it's big change in the US. That's only US change. In Europe, it's not possible. Everything is still acute-centric and run by the hospitals. And so it's very, very difficult. Maybe 10 years from now, we'll have that change. Who knows? But US are on the forefront of that. It's exciting.
Actually, as a continuation to what you just said, I think it also has to do with people's characteristics. You might have patients who just don't have the character, I would say, to confront their doctor and say like, hey, but maybe there is something else. So they kind of submit to, like, the doctor is the last authoritative say, and whatever he says is golden. And sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, I would say nowadays, people are curious for a second opinion. They want to know in more depth, is there maybe another way of doing things, I would say.
And that thirst, hunger of new information and new opinion was actually driven also by COVID. And the fact that now, before in the media, we were not talking so much about healthcare. Think about it, right? As I always say, at the dinner table, it was very difficult for me to talk about my job with my kids. Phase 3, phase 2, it was very complicated. Now I do it because they've been exposed to all the COVID situation and the new drug has got launched, the effectiveness of the drug, and they're listening, right? As the same dynamics you have in my home, you will have in many different homes. So people feel more hungry or thirsty to get information about care, about therapies. At the same time, is creating also a big inequality because the educational level of the people will create even more a dichotomic situation, right? The people that are well educated will ask even for more and more. The people that are not educated will stay behind. And so when you think about decentralized clinical trials, I'm one of the main players in that market, but I'm sad because everybody's saying we are sorting out the issue of diversity in the trial. We are providing the technology, but unless we start to educate the people about it, we're still going to always recruit people that are tech savvy, that have in a certain type of environment in their family, that will be interested in participating in this trial. So giving to them the access in the internet doesn't mean that you're going to get the person with a low income in a very poor state in the United States. It's a human approach that you have to have, not only technology approach. And that's where I think as a group of companies in decentralized clinical trials, we're kind of failing we think that technology will sort it out. No, there has to be the human and educational approach. Otherwise, you're always going to get the people in San Francisco, in Boston, in the area where people are tech savvy and they really want to know more about healthcare.
Gabriele, I think I have a matching question to what we just spoke to. What are the ways that patients can be a part and participate in the healthcare field?
Yeah. So there are different ways to do that. The one that Alira Health is trying to promote the most is whenever we deploy our applications to help them manage their disease, we ask them to sign a waiver and an authorization to say the information that you will provide will be used for research purposes in an anonymized way. That's a big contribution that I'm making. And we're trying to make them understand how big it is. Because when you have a rare disease patient, providing their EMR data because they're uploading on the software, their e-diary, their conditions, then all those data are extremely valuable, very valuable for research. And think about it, if you have enough real-world evidence data in a certain condition, you might decide not to do anymore what is called a control arm. So when you do a clinical trial, you have standard of care and your interventional arm. The standard of care could be done with what is called an external control arm. So you don't have to recruit any more patients. You just use real-world evidence for it. What is called ECA. That's huge. It's half of the time of the trial. Everybody in the trial will get treated. So there's no more people say, oh, I want to go in the trial because maybe they're going to give me a placebo. And what is going to happen with me, right? That's huge. And that can happen if people that are living that disease are providing real-world data. Because you can build registries that can be used for ECAs. It's huge, huh? It's a huge contribution. Faster time to market, better enrollment in clinical trial because you always want to be in the interventional and the experimental arm. So people have to be instructed about this, right? People don't know about it. And that's what we're trying to do as much as we can as Alira Health. And as we should do it as a group, not just Alira Health. Everybody should understand how important it is, the education. Everybody will benefit from it.
Gabriele, I would like to know, what is the thread that ties together the recent acquisitions of the company that Alira has?
So in the last...
So we're talking about 𝐉𝐸𝐞𝐝, Sourcia, Self-Care, Catalyst... amongst others.
It's a lot of them. Yeah, we spend a lot of money. But so I think there are two major threads or fil rouge, right? The first one is the technology one. And so we bought all four different technologies that are doing the same thing we were discussing before, are enabling Alira Health to engage with patients, to partner with patients in the different phases of the life cycle. Self-care catalyst in the clinical and real-world evidence. 𝐉𝐸𝐞𝐝, which is a crowdsourcing in the financing phase, because finance is still a phase of development. So why patients should not be able to invest in technologies they believe in, right? And that's one.
Most definitely.
The other one are more helping. The other one that we did were more just gap filling in certain areas. For example, we didn't have a strong presence in Europe in the CRO space, in clinical trials. So we bought a company that would allow us to become a global player. So those are more, let's say, filling the gaps in the portfolio. But the big fil rouge was on the technology side, because I think out of 8 acquisitions, 4, half of them were in technologies in the last 2 years. Yeah.
Good. Well, as we now know, Alira is delving into delving, I would say, into the fields of digital therapeutics and decentralized clinic trials. Yeah. So, what draws you to those new fields? How do they fit into the larger Alira brand?
Yeah. So, in the decentralized clinical trials, it's the ability to create higher engagement and higher involvement and diversity, as we discussed, in the area of clinical research. The area of clinical research is an area that I think is going to still be big, but is going to be shrinking a little bit in favor of real-world evidence. Because what is happening is saying, look, to prove safety and efficacy in a drug, we can do it faster now. So the clinical part is going to be faster. And we can put the drug sooner if it's safe in the market, after a phase 2B, for example, and prove it if it's effective in the market, like the COVID vaccine did, right? That's so super fast, and let's put it in the market and see if it works, especially if the safety profile is good. So you're going to have clinical, which is going to, before was like this, and real world evidence was very small. Now you have real world evidence growing and clinical getting not growing as fast, or even sometimes shrinking in terms of cost, because it's getting less expensive to bring products to market from a safety and efficacy perspective. DTX is different. DTX is the ability in the last 10 years, pharma companies spent billions in what is called a PSP, a patient support programs. These are programs that you sell or you give to patients when you have a drug used or your drug is used, and to try to drive more adherence. Those are perfect system to collect real world evidence. But because those PSP were mainly driven by the budget of marketing, they were kind of a marketing gig. Oh, it makes me different because I give you the app. Now people are understanding that the app is a perfect way to collect real world evidence. While you collect real world evidence, you collect clinical evidence. So you can show that because of that app, certain clinical outcomes are actually being proven. And then becomes what is called an enhanced PSP that could become a DTX if you can get reimbursement for that app, because you've proven that using that app, you get a clinical outcome. So the continuum from PSP to DTX is been studied in the last 3-4 years. And it's not anymore a marketing gig, the PSP, right? It's not anymore just, hey, I'll give you an app if you use my drug, it's going to help you be better. No, it's I give you an app because you're going to contribute to research. And eventually you also actually build a digital product out of it that is reimbursed.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I love everything I've heard so far, Gabriele, and it brings me to my last question for you today. Okay, what do you envision, what do you envision the future of Alira to be?
The future is driven by our ability to stay true to our core, which is the involvement of patients in our services. And it's tough because sometimes patients are not ready. Sometimes the system is not ready, like in Europe. So you got to stick to it. And know it's going to take some time. But things are changing. Think about the US with the 𝐂𝐸's Act. So I'm sure that something will happen in Europe too. So I really want to be the leading provider of solutions with patients for patients in life sciences, right? And it's a big topic and a big mission. But our idea is actually we are developing right now together with a big university, will be public soon in Massachusetts, one of the best one, a method to validate our ability to track the patient impact of Alira Health. Alira Health is impacting patients directly and indirectly in different conditions. We help the company to get regulatory approval. We follow the drug, how many patients were treated with that drug positively and successfully. So we are putting together a methodology vetted by this university that will hopefully allow us to track it correctly. And by 2030, we want to be the first platform that can impact positively 1 billion patients. That's the mission. Yeah, the objective.
I really wish you all the best of success, Gabriele. Your energy is really good, and I think that you're very genuine in what you say. The plan is bulletproof to my ears. I just hope that the people engage the way you want, because everything they can get out of you, this is their right, and they need to know it. And it's a brand new world for most. So, Gabriele, well done. I have no further questions. The only thing there is left for me to say is, as they say in Italian, grazie mille per tutto.
Grazie mille, Mark. Thank you for the invite.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for all the information. And to everyone watching this podcast, take everything in, because this is a very big concept. Gabriele, thank you so much.
Thank you. Ciao, Mark. Ciao, ciao. And successfully. So we are putting together a methodology vetted by this university that will hopefully allow us to track it correctly. And by 2030, we want to be the first platform that can impact positively 1 billion patients. That's the mission. Yeah, the objective.
I really wish you all the best of success, Gabriele. Your energy is really good, and I think that you're very genuine in what you say. The plan is bulletproof to my ears. I just hope that the people engage the way you want, because everything they can get out of you, this is their right, and they need to know it. And it's a brand new world for most. So, Gabriele, well done. I have no further questions. The only thing there is left for me to say is, as they say in Italian, grazie mille per tutto.
Grazie mille, Mark. Thank you for the invite.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for all the information. And to everyone watching this podcast, take everything in, because this is a very big concept. Gabriele, thank you so much.
Thank you. Ciao, Mark. Ciao, ciao.